uh, get everything pulled up. Okay, here comes a couple more people. Hello, Bridget. Glad you could finally make it in.
Yes, hello.
Sorry for the technical problems.
No worries. Was it just me or was everyone having problems?
No, it's pretty much everybody.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad I'm not alone.
Yeah, no, it's basically a disaster, but that's okay. All right, everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen. Welcome everybody to the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan Sports Sector Meeting. I've got just a couple information slides before we can get going. We are led by this sports sector is co-led by two individuals that I'll have them introduce themselves in just a minute. Pastor Adrian Roberson from KC United and Bill Brandmeier from Shareways Incorporated. Bryce Miller is supporting this sector in addition to myself. And here are the things that we're going to try to go over today. First of all, this meeting is being recorded, so hopefully everyone is okay with that. To help us track everyone, because we've got a pretty large group and we spent a lot of time trying to get started, if you could just put your name, your organization, and your role in that organization in the chat. Since we can't introduce ourselves, though, we do have a couple different activities to get you engaged. And Bryce, do you want to go ahead and share your screen?
Absolutely. Good to see everyone. Thanks for joining us. I don't know if you guys have done this before, but we're going to do a Mentimeter today. It's a pretty easy way to answer questions, and you can kind of see results in real time. So I'll share my screen here, and if you guys want to pull out your phones, that's how we're going to access this survey. So, once we get to this next screen, you guys will be able to go to menti.com. Let's do this. One moment. All right, so we can all pull out our phones. You can go open a browser window and type in menti.com, www.menti.com, and enter the code 83712544. So I'm going to do it as well with the group. And you should see this on your screen. So what we're going to do first is we want to get a basis for what everybody's favorite sport is. So, you know, this can be a sport that you work with directly. This can be a sport that you guys did growing up as a hobby, or maybe, you know, a unique niche sport that you've done. So I come from a track and field background, so I think I would choose this, but I've played badminton in the past a little bit too. So I'm going to go with badminton. And you should just be able to drag your cursor on your phone and place the dot on your sport and then hit the submit button. Awesome. We'll wait another couple seconds here to get some more votes. We have a lot of basketball fans here, someone for tennis, track, volleyball, soccer. There we go. There we got a couple baseball fans. Awesome. All right. Next thing we'll do is we want to get a feel for what your role is in relation to the sports sector. So we have some options here. This might not be all encompassing, but if none of these areas fit you well, you can click other, and then you can actually type in the chat. and let us know what your specific role is related to the sports sector. Awesome. We have a few more seconds here. A lot of nonprofit organizations, that's about what we would expect. All right, we got some messages coming in for other roles here. Great.
And maybe if you have another role, if you could do like Dr. Canty and put in the chat box what your other role is. I know we've got some good representation from sports medicine, I think, today. And if you haven't already listed your name and organization and your role within the organization in the chat box, feel free to do that as well, so we can get an idea of what some of the nonprofits are that are represented here.
Awesome. You guys can keep on typing away there, even if you have multiple roles or different roles and even additional sectors might be related to sport. The next question, we want to get a feel for what region of Kansas City that you guys work in. All right, we got the dot. Awesome. That's probably Adrian, downtown, Jackson County, metro wide and all over. I think that that's probably a lot of us here. KC Mo, South KC, the whole metro. Nice. KC Metro as well for Adrian. Great. Awesome. And we'll keep these surveys going in working groups in the future that we have, and we can kind of start to see some correlation between the different regions that we're doing work and some of the other questions that we're going through. So thank you guys for participating here. Let's see, the last question that we want to go through is, what's the most important issue that you see in sports today? So this is going to be a 1 to 2 word answer. We gave you guys some examples here. If any of those fit what you think is the most important issue for you, your organization, or the sports sector at this moment in time, feel free to type it there. We're going to give you one answer, so make sure you think hard about it. And obviously, you know, there's going to be a plethora of important issues that we talk about throughout the entirety of today's meeting and in the future, and that's exactly why we're meeting today. But let's go for the most important thing that you see. We'll start to see these pop up in kind of a word cloud.
Great. Well, is this the last Menti for right now, Bryce?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Great. This is a very helpful exercise that we wanted to do to kick things off, to really kind of set the stage for the discussions that I think we're going to be having, or that I hope we're going to be having over the next few months. And so before I turn it over to Bill and Adrian for their thoughts, I just wanted to start off with just kind of my overall thoughts on why I think that sports are so important. And well, actually, I'm just going to, we're having enormous technical difficulties today. And so I'm going to just cut my losses on that and turn it over. Bill and Adrian, do you have any welcome thoughts before as we kick off this series of meetings?
Well, Robin, I want to start off by giving you a little grace, knowing how hard you've worked to not only bring this meeting about, but all the other sectors that you support and everything that you do for the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. I think we all agree that we wouldn't be where we're at without your leadership. And thank you so much for inviting me and Pastor Robertson to share this this stage. I am one of 8 kids. I'm a huge believer in collaboration. I think that when many are gathered together for good, good things happen. And I'm just excited to work with the quality of people that are on this call. Obviously, Kansas City is a sports town. I am affiliated with the Sports Talk radio station here, but within that context, I built a foundation that accesses the airwaves to tell the story that sports is good for kids, and that when kids play sports, they find opportunities to become better in life, and that's really something that is what I feel is a birthright to children, and that we need to do a better job of delivering high quality sports experiences throughout the landscape of youth sports. I also think that youth sports has turned into quite a pay for play situation that needs to be addressed and talked about. I'm not sure we can ever solve the problem of having the mighty dollar lead us down the path of delivering services to the youth sports community. But I do think that participation and inclusion and this whole idea of what's happened with restricted behavior, restricted activity, restricted, keeping kids out of school and sports has created an opportunity, a moment in time for us all to really look at how we deliver sports to kids and what it is that they're getting out of that. How do we enrich their lives with these experiences? Sports gives kids a safe space to learn life skills. We know this to be true. I know it personally in my life, but there is scientific research that shows that kids who play sports just tend to have better emotional intelligence and practical life markers that are higher. And we want to do what we can to use sports to give kids access to really quality experiences. Physical activity is key to that. The other piece to this is physical activity is so important for mental health. And so tying that all together, collaborating with these other sectors gives us a really special opportunity. And I just appreciate everybody being online here. And I look forward to incorporating everybody's thought into this as we move forward.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Pastor Roberson.
Thanks, Robin. That's good stuff, Bill. I echo everything that he says. Thank you to all of you that are here. There's probably not one person here who knows the impact of what you do and how it's impacting the many lives of young people, children, youth, and teens, especially after COVID. With all of the social emotional issues that we are seeing, it seems as if COVID has just pulled the sheet back for things that we already knew was there, but now we have to face those things. So knowing that there is substantial data that says that what we do in the sports sector for kids matters in a holistic way, and not just for them, for their parents as well. And so I just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got a huge task ahead of us, and with this new KCPA plan, I've been doing this for about over 30 years. I just retired from coaching youth football, but we never had anything like this back in the day, where we had a collaborative effort that brings the whole city together to really just look at kids and just, man, what can we do to alleviate the pain of what has happened over the last 12 months or so? So Man, I'm honored to be here with Bill, honored to be a part, KC United is honored to be a part of this endeavor. So my thing is hashtag let's go. So thanks, Robin. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's a great segue into what exactly we're trying to do with the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan and what we're trying to do with the sports sector. So I'm going to bring up my slides again real quick and talk just a little bit about, just to give you a quick overview of what the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan is and how the sports sector leads into it. So we started this work in October 2019, and we spent the first year, which was a little bit more than a year, developing the first edition of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. So over that first year, we had 55 total meetings attended by 550 individuals. We also got feedback during those meetings and then through surveys as well. All of that, and we also hosted an event, the Kansas City Physical Activity Summit in September 2020. All of that culminated in the development of the actual Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. We created the full plan and released that in March of this year, and we released a shorter version called the Playbook in December 2020. And those can all be found on the website, which you can see here, kcphysicalactivityplan.org. And we immediately started to see success of our work. And that was, we were able to get a complete streets ordinance, which is a built environment and infrastructure a strategy adopted in Wyandotte County, Kansas, in part to the work of the collective work of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. We've now moved into implementation projects for the first edition of the plan, and we'll continue to do that throughout the next year. So what exactly is the plan? Well, we want to create a Kansas City focused, sector specific group of strategies and tactics that ultimately will foster a culture of physical activity in our region. By doing this, we make a collective statement that physical activity is a public health priority. We've established, or we're establishing, a coalition of partners, including the people on this video call today, to advocate for priorities. And when we create this plan, we'll have a framework for implementation of these projects. We have 4 guiding principles, and that is, we believe every person should have equitable access to safe places for physical activity. Everything we do needs to be evidence-based, and it needs to be community informed and address systems-wide policy and environmental change. So what a lot of this means is breaking down silos to work collectively in creating access for physical activity. So how do we do that? We do that using a sector-based approach. And so here are the sectors that we are targeting in the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. And broadly speaking, these are sectors where we all live our lives. So that's taking our kid to daycare. So we've got the early childhood setting. Then older kids going to school. So we've got a school setting. While we're doing that, we're driving or biking or walking to these places. So we have an infrastructure sector. Of course, we all get sick sometimes, and so we have a healthcare sector. In our free time, we attend faith-based services, so we have a faith-based setting. We spend a lot of time in public spaces like parks and other community recreation. Of course, the reason why we're here today, sports plays a huge role in how we obtain physical activity. And then we've also got areas that most people don't often think of, and that's media, business, and public health. And so the media sector is the one that we just started. And so that's how we communicate about opportunities for physical activity and what physical activity looks like. Sure, it's sports, youth sports, that's very, very common, but it's also walking your dog. It's also doing exercises in a faith-based setting. It can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. The physical activity plan is composed of kind of 3 distinct areas. One, weighing in Children's Mercy is where Bryce and I work, and we are the backbone organization for this work. So that means we manage communication, facilitate meetings, things like that. Obviously today was not our best day for managing some of these logistics, but we promise we'll continue to work at it and get better. But then we also have a core work group, and this group really dictates the strategic mission of the KC Physical Activity Plan. And it represents all of the people that are leading the individual sectors, including number 14 and 15 on our list, Pastor Roberson and Bill Brandmeier. And so these individuals provide strategic decision-making for what we're doing. And then the last group is the actual work groups, and that is referenced to these sectors that you see on the screen right now. So we've already created 3 key documents that you can find on our website, kcphysicalactivityplan.org. The one on the left is the physical activity report card. So this tells us how we're doing in terms of being physically active in our community. I don't have time to talk about it, but the short story is not very well. Our average grade, I believe, was a C-. We have 2 versions of the physical activity plan, as I mentioned earlier. On the right, you can see the full Kansas City physical activity plan. This is a very detailed document that lists all of the strategies and priority tactics and how we got there. It's about 80 pages long. We also have a shorter version that most people find more useful, which is what we call a playbook version. And again, both of those documents can be found on our website, kcphysicalactivityplan.org. So just so we're all on the same page as we talk about things, I've mentioned the term strategies and priority tactics several times. This is ultimately what we're going to try to create over the next several meetings. And these are strategies, which are broad, evidence-informed approaches to promoting physical activity, specifically, in this case, the sports area. And then priority tactics are more specific tactics that support the strategies. So this is more down in the weeds of how to implement a strategy. And so here are all of the strategies that we created in the first year, and they're organized by sector, which you can tell by color. So most sectors developed 3 or 4 strategies over the course of a 3 or 4 month period. Others, like faith-based setting, they actually created 5 different strategies. You can find these again all on our website. But for example, in the school setting, the very first strategy that you see, strategy 1, they recommended that you adopt the comprehensive school physical activity model. And then if you would read the document, there would be 4 to 5 tactics on how to adopt that comprehensive school physical activity model. So that's basically what we're going to try to do over the next few months. And if you would open up the physical activity, the actual physical activity plan, here's what it looks like. There are multiple pages with here's our strategy 1, suggesting the adoption of the physical activity comprehensive school physical activity program. Here are the 3 priority tactics that would help you achieve that strategy. And then here are some more specific approaches that individuals can use to accomplish the adoption of the strategies and priorities. So here is a good place to start for us, and that is something called the National Physical Activity Plan. We modeled all of our work over the national plan. They have a very similar structure to what we have locally, and they've already done the work of creating evidence-based strategies for all of the sectors. So for the sports sector, they have identified 8 strategies that they believe would promote safe and equitable opportunities for sports participation. Now, not all of these strategies are going to be applicable on the local and regional level. So while we may start with these 8 strategies, over the course of the next several months, we are going to refine them. Some are going to elevate and rise to the top. Others are going to drop off. And at the end, we're going to have the ones that are going to have the biggest impact in Kansas City. And so here is the timeline for how this generally happens. And there is not one way that we have found that this process unfolds. Each sector moves at their own speed, using their own decision-making strategies. But in general, our group, which is Bill and Adrian, Bryce, and I, have been meeting since April to figure out where our efforts align, who should be invited to this meeting, and how we want to work through the decision-making process. We are now at the point where we're having our sector meetings. And again, this typically happens over the course of 3 to 4 meetings. These often occur monthly, but they can occur in shorter or longer intervals. One important event that's happening in the short term is a meeting or a summit that aligns very, very nicely with what we're trying to do, and that is the National Youth Sports Virtual Summit, and that's happening on July 27th. So in just a couple minutes, I'm going to stop talking, and we can share just a little bit more information about this particular summit and how this might fit in with our own planning process. But ultimately, by the fall, we anticipate that we will have finalized our strategies, priorities, approaches, and next steps. So the next 2 slides that I'm going to share are just going to be kind of discussion points that we can have over the next few minutes around the survey that I sent around. Hopefully everybody received it. That is a survey for where we rank the national plan sports strategies and tactics. And here are on this slide, you can see at the top, the 8 strategies from the national plan. And here are the results of the ranking process that we went through. The blue bars indicate how likely, on a scale of 0 to 100, do we think this strategy could be implemented locally. And the orange bars are how likely it could actually improve the health of a child. And so the strategies are listed along the bottom. So here are the 8 strategies, strategies 1, 2 through 8. And then you can read up above what the actual strategy was. So the highest ranked strategy for what could be implemented locally would be strategy number 5 with a score of 71 out of 100. And so that is minimizing the risk of sports-related injuries. Several others right behind it were strategy number 3, which was expanding access with focusing on limiting disparities in access. And then there were a handful that kind of were in the 50s, and the lowest ranking was actually strategy number 2, which was creating a central resource to unify stakeholders in the sector. Now, which of these did we think would have the highest impact on health? and that is was strategy 4, which was promoting physical activity, health, participant growth, and development of physical literacy through sports participation. But right behind that were strategies 3 and 7. And 3 was, again, expanding access with focus on eliminating disparities. And number 7, which was creating safe and inclusive environments for sports participation. Now, I should say that these results represent about 12 respondents. And so we're going to share, this survey remains open, so we're going to share that in the link, and maybe Bryce can add that REDCap survey link in the chat box for us. And we'll leave this open and continue to talk about this certainly in the next meeting as well. With that, I might just pause for a second and ask for anyone to, if anyone has any comments on those initial rankings. And you can either do that in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just talk, or raise your hand using the Teams icon. And I guess maybe I'll start with Bill and Adrian. Do you have any? Do you have any comments after seeing some of these findings, or what people are saying is important in our region? Does this align with what you think you've been hearing?
I definitely think that expanding access and promoting physical activity are two strategies that the Shareways Foundation believes are critical to giving a greater sense of health to the community that we would target. It's interesting, with 12 respondents, and a majority of the people on here are sports science or sports medicine doctors or people related to sports medicine from Children's Mercy or the medical field, that this idea of minimizing sports related injuries, I think especially coming out of COVID, is critical. That we have a number of kids and adults that have been separated from most physical activity for over a year now, but obviously people were trying to get outside and do more. The people that have been able to do that seem to not only have the benefits of physical activity that result from that movement and activity, but they also have mental health benefits too that have shown up as we've started to come out of this COVID restrictive life.
Everything Bill said, and especially now coming out of COVID, I tend to jump on words. So when I look at strategy 3 about expanding access, now that COVID is, some of the restrictions are loosening, reintegrating people to access to physical activity. I know the school district over in KCPA is working to open up the schools to give kids access and people outside, entities access to the gyms and things of that nature. Then I look at strategy 4 to my promoting physical activity. Probably some of us can say we could do that because Zoom. I don't know about y'all. I gained 22 pounds since Zoom. I got the Zoomitis, man. So I'm not happy about my Zoom stature right now. But yeah, promoting physical activity, health, and participant growth and development of physical literacy and how it impacts the holistic life of kids. I'm not surprised by this, and I'm really excited because there's a lot of people that are thinking the same thing.
My name is Jason Gearing. I'm a parent here. I've done some youth coaching, soccer, basketball, all that stuff with the YMCA, and I work for an organization that focuses on youth health. I have 3 kids of my own that are involved in sports. I just found the information on strategy 4 interesting, that it's the highest one in terms of what we think would improve health, but it's the lowest one in terms of being able to, or one of the lowest ones in terms of being able to implement it locally, in terms of that disparity between know it's going to improve or believe it's going to improve health to potential difficulty in implementing that. So I'd be interested to explore that further to see what the barriers are to implementing that, since it does seem that for the folks that answered the survey, that would be a huge win in terms of improving health.
Surprisingly enough, and I love that you've kind of hit on this disparity. The recommendations that are coming out from the national organizations that are focused on how we solve some of the disparities that are out there, or how we get people back into physical activity, is collaboration and technology. And it's interesting that we've had this kind of shift in our in the way that we communicate. We're right now together on a Zoom call, discussing this. It has been, obviously all of us have learned a new way of dealing with one another through technology. This collaboration piece is something that Pastor Roberson and I are so excited that the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan saw that having 2 co-leads is critical. It's forced Pastor Robertson and I to understand each other's organization and what our goals are. And even in the fact that we are like-minded and we have a lot of the same initiatives and goals, it's still hard for us to get on the same page because of how hard it is to get ourselves together and discipline ourselves in this strategy of collaborating. I really think it's a unique opportunity that we get to lead this, because we need to make sure we all feel part of this process, and not any one of us takes control or leads us through this, but we all get together and really share thoughts and ideas, and then come up with initiatives and strategies that work.
I think that's a great point as well. How it does come in at a 53 out of, when it's a 77. So I look at that, it makes me think about the fact that we're all here is an amazing thing. However, I know most of us, if not all of us, have been a part of meetings in years past where we would get a lot of people at the table, and by the time it was over with, by the time we get to a certain point, that same number is not there. So when I look at that, when we talk about implemented locally, what comes to my mind is what will KC United, or what will Adrian and our team have to do differently when we talk about doing this thing in a synergistic way, in collaboration, to make that number go from 53 to 54? What strategies and ideas might we be willing to hear and say, could that be something we'd be willing to try and to experiment to get it go from 54 to 55, so that that promotion piece becomes a way of closing that gap? Because we do know that there are disparities out there as far as access to technology, transportation, you name it. But when you get a lot of people around the table like this, the opportunity to go from a 53 to 54, I think of the word commitment. I think of the word us holding each other accountable, not so that any one entity gets to shine or all that, but so that our kids get what they need to get, so that we can close the gap. So I thank you for bringing up that point. And perhaps this might be something we might consider initially jumping into. Not necessarily looking at the stuff that's necessarily looks easy to do, but maybe jumping on some of the hard stuff that we would have to really dig in and get some of that work done.
Well, yeah, I think building on that point, Adrian, is you mentioned working with others, and as you mentioned, we've got a lot of sports medicine physicians joining us today. And for strategy number 4, in terms of promoting health and growth, maybe this is an opportunity for collaboration with people in the healthcare sector to really emphasize the role that sports participation, the unique role sports participation plays in promoting health, whether it's mental health, metabolic health, cardiovascular health, body weight maintenance. Maybe that's an opportunity down the line. And maybe that's why it hasn't been as successful so far, is because those connections maybe haven't been there. I don't know.
And even with that, Robin, I didn't see another hand up. I'm sorry, my screen is kind of limited. But going forward, for those that are out here that have been doing this work and are that are looking for ways to expand, and because the meeting we just got off of, we were talking about the funding opportunities that are out there. A majority of those funding opportunities, they're not necessarily funding sports programs. I mean, and some of you may have that. We don't. Most people I know don't necessarily have funders that say, okay, you're doing basketball, you're doing baseball. But here's the caveat. That the ones that we're finding that are partnering with different people, they're finding that if a lot of funders are supporting those groups that are looking at the mental health aspect of sports. How is sports impacting the mental health capacity of the kids coming out of COVID? So when we're talking about improved health, it might challenge some of us to say, okay, maybe some of my language that I've been we do sports, we get kids scholarships, that's great. However, how is that impacting them now on this side of COVID? We're talking about their mental capacity and how they're dealing with possible issues with depression, stress, all that. So I wanted to throw that out there because, again, these are amazing opportunities to partner with people who have that kind of data that could help take your program, which may have just been initially just sports, and all that, however, to another level of really, really loving on those kids that you take care of year after year.
The other piece, and I'd really be interested in hearing from individuals like Jessica Blublau who have started to implement some camps and training with athletes. I know that I talked to some lacrosse parents who said that the quality of lacrosse this spring was not as high as what they have experienced with other kids or other times of this sport because of COVID, because of the layoff, and that's what I've been calling the lost year of development. I feel like this last year where our kids have been restricted and the parents have been restricted from different types of sports and different types of sports training, that we have an opportunity to emphasize this. And I'm sure the sports medicine physicians and medical people would echo this, really getting us ready to get back to the levels that we were before COVID hit, and really help in some situations kids that were at critical stages of their life, 11, 12, 13 years old, where sports becomes less and less important to them and they make choices to move away. 70% of all kids drop out of sports at age 13 for a reason. And with COVID, the studies that the Aspen Institute are bringing back is that it's even beginning, kind of less than that. I know that Pastor Robertson also has some, evidence, it's not clinical or scientific, but some, what's it called when it's just from the streets? Just some
anecdotal
evidence that it is hard to get these kids back to engaged, and that they do need a little bit more love and care as we bring them back, and they also need to be patient with their bodies. Injuries are spiking along with suicide. So both of those things.
There's
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna put a couple articles here right quick, and then I'm gonna close my mic down. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say who that was, but I'm gonna put a couple articles here. This is from the Aspen Institute. I think if I can do this right. Yeah, and it talks about now is the time to coach mental health in youth sports. So I'm putting that out there. And then there's a second one here. It's called the National Youth Sports Strategy. Just something that you can look at. It's from health.gov that we've been trying to look at as an organization as to how can we help, how can we be better with what we do. And with that, I'll turn the mic over.
Yeah, I can jump in. This is Jessica with Win for KC. For anybody who's not familiar with who we are, we're the Women's Intersport Network for Kansas City. We're a subset of the Greater Kansas City Sports Commission and Foundation. Our goal is to empower the lives of girls and women through sports, and we do that through a variety of different events and programs. And I think just to sort of piggyback on everything that everyone's already said, I think for us, you know, the way that we're viewing and experiencing things right now is there's absolutely sort of those two polar ends of the spectrum when we look at participation in sports. We have kids coming from affluent communities who have access and have the resources to play on the elite club sports teams and have the plethora of opportunities at their doorstep. And then we have the kids on the other end of the spectrum who are coming from more underserved communities. They don't have the financial means and resources to necessarily get to whatever that next competitive level might be, let alone even the recreational opportunities that could be or should be in their backyard. That disparity and that gap certainly existed prior to COVID. I think what we've seen now is that COVID just exacerbated that gap. And so not only are we seeing the gap that already there existed become bigger, but we're also seeing the fact that kids are, you factor the burnout rate on top of that, and you factor all the complicated variables that COVID caused in terms of, you know, extra time being sedentary in front of screens and disengagement and all of that stuff, and all of the terrible stuff that came out of last year. It's further complicated, you know, participation. We're in the process of right now executing 16 camps over the next the rest of this month, and started a week ago. And I think from a participation perspective, we're seeing that our numbers are in some pockets of the communities similar to what they look like prior to COVID. I think in other pockets of the community, we're seeing less participation and a slower creep back. But we're also seeing that from a coach engagement perspective too, which I think is an interesting, you know, another variable that layers on top of all of this, which is when we as an organization have been running this camp that we've run for 22 years, and it's largely hinged upon the success of us recruiting volunteer coaches in a variety of different sports. So they're doing anywhere from 14 to 16 sports over the course of five days. So we're super reliant on volunteer coaches to come give their time and expertise in those areas, and we're reliant on high school kids to come serve as camp counselors. And in both of those areas, we've seen more of a lag than we've seen ever in the time this camp has existed to pull that off. Now, granted, we're doing 4 times as many camps as we normally do, but I think that there's certainly something to pull out from that. That's not just about the increase in number.
Those are great comments and great discussion. And I think this is really just kind of a prelude to, I think, the in-depth conversations that I hope we can have over the next several meetings. We were intended to stop at 4. We've got, since we started late, we have just 2 more things we'd like to go over before we let you leave and think about things before our next meeting. This last Menti that we want, that we're asking, is just ranking the National Physical Activity Plan strategies. So you can rank them in terms of which you think is the most important. And this question is also in that RegCap survey that Bryce put in the link. And so this will give us just a snapshot into what you're thinking, but please fill out that RegCap survey where you can also record your responses, and we'll share all those results in our next meeting. And so let's see. Feel free to, it's very small font. and you can rank as many as you want. How is this going to show up, Bryce? Do you know?
Yeah, so I know there's kind of a lot on your phone screens right now, but you'll click on that first box and you can select the one that you think is most important for you at the moment, and then it will take away that option from the list, and you can choose second, third, and so on. Once you finish, you can submit it, and then we'll start to see these results come through in real time, and we can get your guys' initial interpretations of this prioritization. Like Robin said, this doesn't include tactics. It's basically just a summary of each of the national strategies. So after the meeting, if you haven't completed that REDCap document, we can get some really valuable data from everybody in this meeting on the specific strategies with the supporting tactics.
Should we be receiving or seeing our results here, Bryce? Or
yeah, I think people are probably still completing it here. I'm almost done with mine. All right, I just submitted. Let's see what we got.
all right. So this is, kind of another way of sharing the information that I showed in the previous results. And so far, it looks pretty similar to what we saw from the initial REDCap surveys, where there were 3 clear strategies that seem to be rising to the top. One is the adoption of policy and practices that promote, kind of health, growth, and physical literacy. Expanding access and equity, and creating safe and inclusive environments. And so these results will be saved, and we'll use these results and the results of the REDCap kind of as a way to start our conversation in our next meeting. For that next meeting, we'll be working with Adrian and Bill to find a time that works in July. It gets hard with of course summer vacations and things, but we'll send out a follow-up meeting invitation. We'll get our logistics sorted out so we don't have these problems on the front end with the virtual link. So look for that in your inbox. In the meantime, the last thing that I would ask for you is to tell us who we might be missing from this conversation. So you can look at the participants that are currently here. You can see who put their names in the chat box and where they work, and let us know. Who is it that should be at the table that's currently not? Is it someone from a specific area, whether that's we need more coaches, we need more for-profit sports people? Do we need people from different parts of the region? Do we need someone from the Northland? Do we make sure we have someone from East Jackson County? Please let us know. And the easiest way to do that is by putting it in the chat, or you can reach out to us when we follow up with a meeting summary that we'll send out in the next day or two. With that, I think I've reached the end of what I wanted to say, and so I'll kind of leave it to Adrian and Bill to provide any parting comments as we head out today.
No, thank you to everybody for coming. I know we've gone past 4 o'clock. I guess my last thing is this. I know all of our plates are, as we said in our last meeting, our cups are running over. And with that, I would hope you would really go and leave this meeting and consider, being a part of this for the long haul, trying to find time within those tight schedules that we all have for you, because your insight is going to be so important for us all to be able to help our kids get what they get across the city. So again, thank you for coming, and really consider being a part of this team. Thank you.
Oh, Bill, you're muted. Yep.
I just want to just echo that and just thank everyone for joining us. I'm honored to be a part of this. We have a lot of work to do, which is exciting. I love the team that we're forming, and I really appreciate Bryce and Robin helping us, and Matt Kleiman as part of this, and Shelly Sumar. The amazing group there at Children's Mercy. And when you're in conversations with others about physical activity and sports and kids, saying that you're a part of Children's Mercy Hospital means a lot. I mean, they are the #1 children's hospital in the region, if not one of the best in the nation. And we're lucky to have them leading us. And I just appreciate that. So this is a great group, but this is a really exciting time. So excited about the future.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Again, our apologies for the technical difficulties on the front end. We'll follow up in the next couple days with some meeting minutes and wrap up and information on when the next meeting will occur. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.